Well, Ian, it's Codgertations time again, and we're all a bit perkier this week because Martyn's gone off on holiday. This morning the armoured car arrived and she was pushed into it, and we believe she's gone to Skegness where it's so bracing. So we've got a couple of weeks of freedom.
Yes.
So who knows what will happen tonight.
You can really feel the atmosphere change in this place.
You can. It's much lighter and sort of everybody's a lot happier and skipping about. But before we get on to the fun part, let's do our cogitating for this week. To begin with, you've been looking at the wholesale applications community. What's been happening there?
Yes, well, we had a call earlier this week from the wholesale applications community, and really it's a challenge to the App Store concept as delivered by Apple and increasingly Google. You know, the WAC is really an attempt to get a carrier-driven kind of apps arrangement. It's not really like Apple or Google though. It's a wholesale platform, and the idea is that they kind of reinstitute the idea of a value chain. So you've got, you know, developers at one end, you've got a wholesaler in the middle, them sort of certifying all the applications to make sure they work, and then they spray them out to various retailers who put them in their stores, and then the end users buy them. But I mean, the thing is it too late for this sort of thing? You know, are carriers the best people to run this, and is it the right model anyway? And you've got to worry, because, you know, when they announced it, and even 18 months ago, there was a great sort of proportion of the population that we thought, well, they're never going to be able to have a smartphone, you know, and this is a good idea because it opens up all of the other phone platforms to apps as well. But in actual fact, you know, what's happened over the last year or so, or the last 6 months, is that, you know, platforms like Android in particular have come so far down market, got so cheap, that by the middle of the next decade, I reckon, they'll be as cheap as feature phones. So actually you don't need a platform. We'll all have smartphones. We won't have feature phones anymore. So that kind of platform might not be needed.
Well, we'll see what happens in Barcelona in February 2011.
Yes. So Martyn, we often spend a lot of time, you know, berating Mr. Jobs of Apple, basically because he's a bit fussy about his platform, and he tries to repel all comers, doesn't he?
Well, that's the understatement of the century, really. A bit fussy. He's a control freak, as everybody in Cupertino freely admits. But this is about the Cupertino Redemption. What has actually happened is, you know how precious they've been about locking users into the iPhone, only allowing certain applications through the App Store and all the rest of it. Very arcane, almost Masonic sort of gathering when they decide secretly which apps can go through and which can't and all the rest of it. And there's been a lot of agitation about this, and the FCC has done nothing about it. It's just sat back and whistled. And of all people, the Copyright Office of the Library of Congress has actually said, no, Apple, unlocking an iPhone isn't a breach of copyright, so yaboo sucks to you. People can go ahead and do it. It's called jailbreaking. So it's now legal. It was theoretically a crime, a misdemeanor,
right,
to unlock an iPhone. They've now said it's not. Of course, this means that Mr. Jobs and the people at Apple are fulminating about this and saying, oh, the world's going to fall apart and the sky's going to fall in on us. But it's not. There are I forget how many thousands of apps there are, 225,000 Apple apps available through the App Store, but an enormous number are simply not allowed through the mesh for whatever reason. We don't know why. Some of it we believe is due. They always say, oh, there's porn involved or this sort of thing, but there can't be in every single application that doesn't make it. And there's a lot of thought and belief that perhaps it's jealousy, or professional jealousy, or ensuring that they keep everybody in that walled garden community tightly in there forever. And it can't go on. The world's changing, and now people can legally jailbreak from their locked iPhone, and nobody can do anything about it.
Yeah, I suppose what will happen is that because it's legal, obviously legal, you'll get commercial people doing it for you more openly. You know, whereas before it's slightly under the counter, wasn't it?
I think so. Well, a lot of grey stuff, under the counter stuff. That should do away with it. We'll see.
Okay.
We're always and forever hearing about the dangers of radiation from mobile phones and the cancer scares and all the rest of it. There's been so much research on it, Ian, that has proven time and time again it probably doesn't exist, but San Francisco thinks it still might.
Yes. Well, it's actually, as you say, Martyn, there's been so much research, you almost feel that you've reached the point where you can say, yes, definitely, there is no effect for cancer. But of course, being scientists, you can't really do that. All you can say is we don't have any evidence. But the problem about having, it sounds so defensive, doesn't it, when you say, you know, we haven't got any evidence at the moment which points to there being any link between, you know, telephone usage and cancer. And the long history of things like smoking and so on, I think people have their antenna attuned to think, well, it's only a matter of time before something comes out. You know, the defensiveness of that position is fairly obvious. And what's irked me recently is in San Francisco, the city there has decided that they're going to mandate the display of information about how much radiation each phone puts out. You know, there's a ratio apparently of wattage per head mass. You know, and each phone has a kind of ratio on average that it puts. Obviously, phones vary because you know the radiation goes up and down with signal strength. But apparently, there's some number that you can derive which says this phone actually sprays this much radiation into your head. Now, the problem with that is, because there's no link, because there is no cancer anyway, you're suddenly you're suggesting to people that there is a problem. Otherwise, why would you put the number on there? And what's the action they're going to take? Are they going to buy the phone with the smallest amount of radiation, which is on every phone is safe in any case? And the whole thing is kind of annoying, and it kind of shows you how you can whip up a kind of feeling of an emotion.
Well, San Francisco's always been right on and left of centre as far as the United States is concerned anyway, and very much it goes its own way. And I suppose them thinking public health is all important, but sounds like this could be another trail leading nowhere?
Yes, I would say so. So Martyn, Ofcom, you know, every year we have the same thing, don't we? We have a kind of ritual chest beating about the fact that ISPs in the UK aren't advertising the speeds properly, and it's happened again.
Oh God, this goes on year in, year out. It really is a disgrace and a scandal. It really does make me cross, this. Every year Ofcom trots out a report saying the headline speeds advertised by ISPs are not real and people don't get anywhere near that, and we should do something about it. What's happened this year is they've trotted out the same report again, but they've actually said it's got worse. 2009, you got 56% of advertised top line speed. Now users get on average 46%. It's getting worse and absolutely nothing's being done about it. They draw our attention to this year in, year out, and then they sit back on their hands for another year in this quango, which, given the new government and the fact they hate quangos, I know we've got to have a regulator of some sort in this country, but somebody really ought to put a rocket up Ofcom, because they're a joke. They haven't done anything for so long, and to come out with this thing yet again and say, yes, we know that the ISPs are advertising this up to speed, which is pure nonsense. You only get that speed if you live next door to an exchange, yeah, and you log on at 3 o'clock on Boxing Day morning or New Year's Eve when everything's quiet. Not New Year's Eve, when it's quiet. And if you're really lucky, you might get that headline, yes, speed then. But in practice, you don't. If you're cabled, you get better speeds. If you're on DSL, you're on hiding to nothing anyway. Now they're saying, we think it might be time that we started looking at the advertising. No, you're the regulator. Do something about it. Don't just sit there. Do something about it. Use your powers. Do something and say this advertising is not true. It is misleading. We are going to do something about this. We're going to introduce sanctions. You are going to have a code of conduct that we will impose. And if you don't do that, we're going to fine you until your teeth bleed. Yeah, yeah. And when that happens, perhaps Ofcom will be looked at as some sort of working, sensible organisation, not the joke it is today. Anyway, enough of the seriousness. We've got a great evening in front of us, and Matron is off on her halls, and we're going to have a feast in the ward later on.
Oh, goody.
There's going to be some ginger beer and some lashings, or lashings of ginger beer, I'm not sure which, but it sounds good to me. And neither of us get the compulsory enema tonight, which I'm not so sure about. I quite enjoy it.
I was looking forward to that, but there you go. Stunned silence from Robbie. Yeah.